Okay, this is the second module. Um, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to continue to describe, to give the uh, the audience a sort of an understanding, an overview of what's in this book. I'm Joe Sergi. I'm the author of the book, and the book is The Psychology of Quality of Life, Hedonic Well-Being, Life Satisfaction, and Eudaimonia. In the first part, what we did is we in the first part we described the philosophical foundations and definitions of and measures associated with those three concepts. And again, those three concepts are hedonic well-being, life satisfaction, and eudaimonia. I'm going to put the book right here so that the audience will get a chance to look at it. And what we're going to do in this module is focus on the consequences of happiness. Okay, now in terms of the consequences of happiness, what I did is I summarized much of the research in quality of life studies and well-being research in terms of those categories: health, achievement at work, social relationships, pro-social behavior, trust, and too much happiness. So let's go over the evidence, and let's start out with health. And in that context, I was able to find a quotation from Diener and Chang um, that has been published in a study that has been published in Applied Psychology, Health and Well-Being, that really captures the essence of much of the research that has been done in this area. And I think this quotation really um, captures much of that essence. Um, so let me read it to you. Seven types of evidence are reviewed that indicate subjective well-being, such as life satisfaction, absence of negative emotions, optimism, and positive emotions, cause causes better health and longevity. For example, prospective longitudinal studies of normal populations provide evidence that various types of subjective well-being, such as positive affect, predicts health and longevity, controlling for the health and socioeconomic status at baseline. Combined with experimental human and animal research, as well as naturalistic studies of changes of subjective well-being and physiological processes over time, the case that subjective well-being influence health and longevity is compelling, is compelling. However, the claim that subjective well-being lengthens the lives of those with certain disease, such as cancer, remains controversial. Again, that's a very important point. Positive feelings predict longevity and health beyond negative feelings. However, the intensity aroused or manic positive feelings may be detrimental to health. Now, again, the last point is kind of very interesting, and that is it's not necessarily the more the better. Above a certain point of positive feelings, then it turns into mania. And again, that gets into a little bit more of abnormal psychology, where you could talk about, again, people who are manic depressives, or what you call bipolars, and that is not necessarily good from a health perspective. So again, this quotation I think captures much of the essence of the research that has indicated that happiness does indeed have a positive effect on health. Okay, now we're moving to the second item on the consequences list, which is the effects of happiness on achievement and work. And much of the research is summarized in these two columns. As you see, one column deals with happiness is associated with high levels of blah, blah, blah. And then the other column is happiness is associated with low levels of a whole bunch of other things. So again, capturing much of the evidence, those people are happy, tend to be more productive. Uh, they tend to score highly on their, job performance measures. They tend to uh, be characterized as organizational citizens. So on citizenship measures, again, they score highly there. They tend to be much more creative in their thinking. They tend to be better at problem solving. They're much more. They've achieved a lot more professionally um, than their counterparts. They long-term financial success is also another item, another consequence. I mean, they they tend to have a higher pay than again those people who are not happy. They tend to have higher ratings from their supervisors. And again, those people are not happy. They tend to be much more cooperative. And when it comes to the other column, again, happiness is associated with low levels of absenteeism, tardiness, turnover, accident rates, conflict on group projects, and the like. So again, much of the evidence can be summarized in terms of again you know uh, those items as shown in the slide. Okay, well let's move on to the to looking at the research on the effects of happiness on social relationships, pro-social behavior, trust, and future happiness. And again, this slide captures much of the evidence regarding the impact of happiness on these things. So let me read to you this, you know, the summary of that slide. Experimental evidence suggests that happiness brings out the best in people, making them more social, cooperative, and ethical. Many studies have linked positive mood and pro-social behavior in a variety of settings. Positive affect, as experimentally induced, has been shown to increase self-disclosure and positive social interactions. Research has shown that happy people report more helping behavior in the past and a greater willingness and intention to help others in the future. Happy people are more likable than depressed people. They are perceived as being they're perceived to be more moral than unhappy people and are expected to honor whatever deals they make in negotiations. Active participation in social activities and involvement in one's community is associated with higher levels of subjective well being. Happy people are not only trusting more than unhappy people, they are more trusted by others. Countries that score high on subjective well being also score highly on generalized trust, voluntarism, and democratic attitudes. Happy people tend to have attributional styles that are self enhancing and enabling than unhappy people. Thus, positive emotions pave way for positive cognitions, which in turn contribute to further positive emotions. So, again, that's much of the research is captured in terms of those bullet points. Okay, well, let's say something about how the research has shown that happiness is adaptive. So, from an evolutionary psychology perspective, you know, there is quite a bit of evidence that shows that happiness is adaptive in life in an evolutionary sense. So, what does that mean? Let me read to you that slide, and it sort of captures what we mean by happiness is adaptive. What are the adaptive functions of happiness? Evolutionary psychology has long demonstrated the adaptive effects of negative emotions, for example, fear, anger, and anxiety. Negative affect makes people focus on the threatening stimulus or problem, marshaling the individual's efforts, both physical and mental, for the purpose of eliminating the threatening stimulus or solving the problem. Doing so enhances the individual's evolutionary fitness by allowing him or her to survive and pass his or her genes to the next generation. In contrast, positive emotions allow the individual to broaden their thought action repertoires and harness resources, intellectual, emotional, social, and material resources over time. That is, positive emotions allow people to explore their environment confidently. Positive emotions propel people to set new goals and reach new heights. Positive emotions make people more adaptive in the way they succeed in life, which translates to ensuring that their genes are transmitted to the next generation. And that sort of concludes that part of the book dealing with the consequences of happiness. So we'll stop here.